Welcome back. I appreciate you being with me so very, very much. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, sharing with you my understanding of the Word of God. We've been studying the doctrine of the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15. You know, in 1 Corinthians 15, as I pointed out in earlier videos, Paul discusses the fact of persecution that he was, and the other apostles and the early church was experiencing. 1 Corinthians 15, 30 and following. Well, that resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 is the resurrection of Romans chapter 8, 17 and following. Extremely few commentators, except preterists, and preterists don't really deny that connection. We just put it in its proper historical context, temporal context. But virtually everyone agrees that 1 Corinthians 15, Romans chapter 8, are talking about the end-time resurrection. Okay, in Romans chapter 8, Paul discusses the then-present suffering that they were enduring, just like Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, 30 and following, talks about the suffering that they had been enduring. But Paul in Romans chapter 8 puts that martyrdom within the context of the promise of imminent vindication at the time of the manifestation of the sons of God, the time of their glorification. And look, I just got to mention this. There was a motif, there was a mindset in the ancient world known as shame versus glory. Shame versus glory. There was a strongly held belief and attitude that if you were a people, a city, a kingdom that had been conquered by another people, then you were in the dust. You were dead. You were shamed. You had lost your identity. But if you were able to come back to triumph over that humiliation, to triumph over that defeat, guess what? You were raised from the dead. You were glorified. You were vindicated. Now we understand that maybe tiny, just a little bit in our world, but we don't understand it anything like the ancient Greeks and the ancient Hebrews. And so when Romans chapter 8 talks about the then present suffering, in contrast to the glory that was about to be revealed, and the context is relief from suffering, this is extremely important to grasp. Well, I don't have time to develop that anymore here, but what I want us to see, because we've been examining this concept of suffering and martyrdom, the promise of imminent vindication, the imminent glorification, at the time of their manifestation of the sons of God and the resurrection, the time of the judgment. We've looked at Revelation 1, Revelation 3, Revelation 6, Revelation chapter 12. I want to call your attention now to Revelation chapter 17. John, in his vision, said, I was carried away to see a woman sitting on a harlot beast, which is full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a cup full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. And then in chapter 18, we find the promise of the coming judgment of Babylon. Now, what do we have? We have in Revelation 17 and 18 a laser-focused discussion on the persecuting power, on the persecutor of those in Revelation chapter 6. The persecutor under the imagery of the devil, Satan, the great adversary, in Revelation chapter 12. And it is Babylon the Great. Now I've got to tell you right here, I was raised believing, teaching, that Babylon of Revelation was none other than the Roman Catholic Church. Never forget a 2-week gospel meeting in Greenland, Arkansas, held by F.I. Stanley. He was very prominent in Arkansas, Missouri, Texas. And that was in the days of the sheet charts. You remember? Some of you may remember those. Now we got PowerPoint. Well, that was the PowerPoint of the day, okay? The last week of that meeting, F.I. Stanley presented his view, his belief, magnificently illustrated on the sheet charts, that Babylon was the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope was the man of sin. I was enthralled. I was convinced. I was on the front pew. I was 11 years old, for crying out loud, sitting on the front pew, soaking it in, totally convinced. And then I made the mistake years following of actually studying the issue for myself. And I soon discovered that Babylon of Revelation, the persecutor of God's people, the persecutor whose cup was now full of the blood of the martyrs of God, could not have been the Roman Catholic Church. Does that excuse the Roman Catholic Church for her sins through the ages? No, it's not the point. But it demands that if we're going to interpret Revelation, and if we're going to interpret eschatology correctly, we absolutely must identify Babylon of Revelation. Because the destruction of Babylon is the destruction of Satan. The destruction of Satan occurs at the end of the millennium. So over the next few videos, I'm going to share with you just a few of the reasons why Babylon of Revelation absolutely must be identified as Old Covenant, first century Jerusalem. And that this proves categorically, since the resurrection of Romans chapter 8 would be at the resurrection, at the day of the Lord. And since the resurrection would be at the time of the vindication of the martyrs, and since the vindication of the martyrs would be at the judgment of Babylon, then when we identify Babylon, we have thereby irrefutably identified the time of the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15. Listen, when I changed my mind over the years about the identity of Babylon, I wrote this book. It's been revised about 3 times and expanded, enlarged, enhanced, and improved. If you want one of the most thorough discussions of who is this Babylon, go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com, and order this book, Who is This Babylon? And I want to tell you, I believe you will be absolutely blown away at how powerful the evidence is that Babylon of Revelation was none other than Old Covenant, first century Jerusalem, and that therefore the resurrection was in AD 70. So, who is Babylon? Begin sharing that with you in the next video. We'll see you on the flip side.